Here's a bunch of G notes all over the fretboard. Here's a bunch of D notes all over the fretboard. Hey, Barrett Wilson here. Now, many great guitar players can do what I just did there, finding the same note all over the fretboard, knowing all the notes all over the fretboard. But how do we actually get there? How do we go from being lost on the neck to confidently naming notes anywhere? Today, we're gonna break down a systematic approach to learning the fretboard notes using natural notes and the whole step, half step concept. By the end of this video, you'll have 2 concrete methods to start mapping out the entire fretboard. Now, the natural notes are simply the first 7 letters of the alphabet: A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Now, these 7 notes are gonna be our roadmap for now. Before we jump into notes with sharps and flats, it's important to really have a deep understanding of the natural notes. These act as anchors for us to then eventually learn all of the other notes. Okay, now here's the key thing that you need to know about the distance between these natural notes. There's gonna be 2 instances where there's movement of a half step. Now, a half step is just 1 fret at a time. So from there to there, from there to there. Okay, and those instances are from E to F, and also from B to C. So that means anywhere on the fretboard, if you have an E note, to get to an F, it's just gonna be a half step. So that happens here, happens here, happens here, happens here, happens here, all over the place. Also, same thing with B to C. B to C, half step movement. B to C, B to C, you get the idea. Okay, now besides those 2 instances, E to F and B to C, everything else is going to be a whole step or 2 frets. So that's there to there, there to there, etc. So going through this, we really want to keep in mind E to F and B to C half step. Everything else is going to be full step. I can kind of walk you through this on 1 string. Let's take the B string. So we have B to C, that's a half step. C to D is a whole step. D to E is a whole step. E to F, that's that other instance, that's a half step. F to G, whole. G to A, whole. And then A to B, another whole step. Okay, let's get into a first exercise or way to explore this concept of natural notes, whole step, half step movement, with something a little manageable. We're just gonna focus on learning the first 3 frets, 1, 2, and 3, across all 6 strings. Now, I should mention, it's a must that at this point you know the notes of the open string. So if you don't, that's where you should start, memorizing low E, A, D, G, B, and high E. That's strings 6 to 1. Okay, so let's check this out with our half step, whole step method, starting on the 6th string, the low E string. Now that's an E note. So we know moving from E to F, that's that first instance of a half step. So E to F, that's gonna be half step. So 0 to 1. Now next we're going F, we're following along with the alphabet. Next note is G, that's a whole step. So we're gonna go to 3. So right there, we already have the first 3 notes, E, F, and G. Now I also want to point out, the same notes happen on the high E string. So we've already learned the high E string, E, F, and G. They're the same. Okay, let's go back to the 5th string, A, open. Now A to B, that's gonna be a whole step. So we go to the 2nd fret this time, 0 to 2. And then we have B to C. That's the 2nd instance of our half step movement. So we go to the 3rd fret. Okay, let's check out 4th string. D is open. D to E is a whole step. E to F, that's a half step. All right, let's check out the third string G. G is open. And then G to A is a whole step. So we go to the second fret. Now, here's where I want to point out, movement from A to B is also a whole step. So if you wanted, you could go to that fourth fret, but that crosses our 3 fret threshold, and that's not the exercise. We're staying within 3 frets. So we go to open B. So we only have 2 notes there that we're going to play on the G string, G and A. And then we jump to the B string. We've got B. B to C is our next half step movement. C to D is whole step. And then we've already done the high E string, E, F, G. Okay, that's all the notes on the first 3 frets. Let's walk it up. It's all the natural notes. E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Okay, once again, notice how those half steps show up from E to F, here to here, also here and here, also here, here, and then once again, B to C, so here and here. Okay, now once you're comfortable with the notes, you want to start drilling them. So a good thing to do is always name the note out loud. You can start this by just going string by string, saying each note as you play it. So E, F, G, move on to the next string, A, B, C, and so forth. You can also go forward and backwards. So you could go, once you go all the way down the strings, go backwards. So starting here, G, F, E, D, C, B, A, G, F, E, D, so forth all the way back. This is going to start reverse engineering what you're studying. It's going to be hard on the brain, but it's really good for you. Okay, another exercise you could do is skipping strings. This is also just a way to mix things up. So say you start on low E, you go E, F, G, skip to the D string, you've got D, E, F, then maybe you go back to the A string, A, B, C, go to G string, G, A, back to D, D, E, F, B string, B, C, D, and so forth. Back to G string, G, A, high E, E, F, G. And then you could go reverse the other direction if you wanted to. And then a great thing to do after this is walk up 3 notes, walk back 3 notes. That looks like this. E, F, G, F, E, A, B, C, B, A, and so forth all the way up, and then go all the way back. Now, real quick, to find more in-depth lessons on not only fretboard knowledge, but complete beginner to advanced guitar learning, click the link in the description below for a free Ultimate Beginner Guide that includes an essential chord chart, a practice plan, a walkthrough of some beginner pitfalls to avoid, and a whole lot more. All right, now back to the lesson. Okay, here's our next method, and this is going to be learning the notes more up the neck and focusing on single string. So this is a single string approach here. We're going to start with the low E string. And similarly, we're just going to walk up the natural notes. Okay, so we start with E to F, that's half step movement. Then we go F to G, that's a whole step. G to A, whole step. A to B, whole step. B to C, half step. C to D is whole step. And D to E, whole step. Okay, after you get to the 12th fret, the notes repeat exactly as they did. So E, F, G, A, B, C, D, and so forth. So it's also helpful to know that these fret markers, they actually replicate what's happening on the lower 12th fret. So this marker here is the same as this marker here. This 5th fret marker is the same as this one here, and so forth. So next, you want to try and do this for every other string. You can walk up just like I did there with the whole step, half step method. I'll do one more string for you. Let's do the G string for fun. We've got G. G to A is a whole step. A to B is a whole step. B to C is that half step. C to D is whole. D to E is whole. E to F is that second half step, so one fret. F to G is a whole step. And then it keeps going from there. Right now we're just focusing on these first 12 frets. So after you've gone through each string, now it's time to start drilling. You really want to focus on one string at a time. Again, note naming allowed. You could spend a few days on just one string, or even a week or so. Okay, so you want to go up. Now the next thing you might want to do is go back. Go backwards. So say we've gone up the A string, let's go backwards. So we're here A, we're gonna go back to G. Go back to F, E, D, C, B, and then finally A. And again, you're keeping in mind that whole step, half step movement. You kind of have to go backwards in your head on the alphabet. It's a lot to work through. Okay, the next idea that you could do is a 3-note melodic pattern. Here's how this would look. You go up 2 and back 1. So if I'm on the low E string, E, F, G, go back to F. F, G, A. G, A, B, C, B, C, D, and then C, D, E. And again, you can do the same thing going backwards. E, D, C, D, C, B, C, B, A, all the way down just like that. This is really going to be good for memorizing these notes. Okay, the last thing here that I like to do is study the notes in fourths. Here's what that means. If I'm on the low E string, I have E. Going up 4 notes of the natural notes would be A. So E, F, G, A. See if you can find A. It's right here. Then go another 4 notes, A, B, C, D. Where's D? It's right here. And we keep going with this process. It's kind of jumbled and it forces us to move around and skip notes. So from D, D, E, F, G. It's right here. G, A, B, C. It's right here. C, D, E, F. It's here. F, G, A, B. It's right here. B, C, D, E. We land back at E. So you're eventually going to go all through the 7 notes and land back where you started, which is a really cool thing. And the other cool thing about that moving in fourths is it starts to set you up for how chord progressions move. A lot of chord progressions in pop harmony and really all music move in fourths. So you'll see a lot of A, going to D, going to G, going to C. So learning the notes and studying them this way is setting you up for that later on. Okay, so the beautiful thing here about this approach is that you're not just memorizing dots on the fretboard, you're understanding the musical relationship between these notes. Now, these 2 methods will get you well on your way to fretboard mastery. Start with the first 3 frets to build your foundation, then use the single string approach to expand your knowledge up the neck. Remember, this isn't about speed, it's about accuracy and understanding. Take your time, practice just a little bit every day. Soon you'll be finding notes all over the fretboard. Now the key is consistency here, practicing these exercises on a regular basis, even just 5 minutes a day. Pick one string, stick to it for a whole week or so. After a few weeks, you'll have all the natural notes. Okay, that's it for this video. Be sure to enter your email for a free beginner guitar guide linked in the description, or you can find it on the next screen. All right, happy practice and see you later.